Welcome back to Bible Time. So today we're going to cover Genesis chapters 22 and 23 together. This is the English Standard Version. Again, disclaimer, names, places, I may butcher that and not be able to pronounce them. The goal is to get through the Bible and to figure out God's Word and what He's trying to tell us here. So that's where I'm at. Feel free to join me on the journey. We're going to start with Genesis chapter 22, which is labeled the sacrifice of Isaac. Now keep in mind, Isaac is the child that Abraham and Sarah had at a very old age, like 90 and 100. And this was the child that, Sarah could not have children her whole life, so this was the miracle from God. After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. He said, Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and his son Isaac. And he cut the wood for the burnt offering, and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place from afar. Then Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son, and he took in his hand the fire and the knife. So they went both of them together. And Isaac said to his father Abraham, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. He said, Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for burnt offering? Abraham said, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. So they went both of them together. Could you even imagine? I guess maybe some people have. And they say they killed their children because the devil or God told them to. But this story has a different ending, so it doesn't make reality out of those situations. Those are crazy thoughts. But could you even imagine? You waited forever for this child. Sarah finally gets her blessing. Now God says, Go kill him and set him on fire. And Abraham just, no questions asked. Sure. At this point, I don't think Sarah knows what is going to happen to her child. But could you even imagine coming home and saying, I killed her kid and set him on fire and offered him to God? How much of a lunatic you would think your spouse is. Just put this in modern day. Abraham would be in jail so fast right now, it's not even funny. For God to even, this is where sometimes I struggle. For God to test you to the point of having to kill your child? Is that not going a little too far for loyalty? So sometimes I just get this, this is what we think of cults nowadays, right? And why? If God knows all, He knows Abraham's loyal, why would you put somebody through this kind of anguish if you love them? I love somebody, I'm not going to have them kill their children. And I struggle sometimes with these kind of things in the Bible. Like, how could a father who loves you so much test you like this? And I guess it's not for me to question, and maybe as we get through this, it'll start making more sense. But it just doesn't sit well in my gut. Because, I guess if I was God, I couldn't have somebody do that to their child. I just couldn't. Unless the child was evil, and then I would take out evil. I wouldn't ask the parent to do that. But I'm not God. I guess We can all be very thankful I'm not God, right? I'm not going to pretend to be. Let's see where this goes. Chapter 22, verse 9. When they came to the place of which God had told them, Abraham built the altar there and laid the wood in order and bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Could you even imagine Isaac being bound? Like, this is an everyday event. The child did not fight back. He did not question anything. Why are you tying me up, Dad? Then Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to slaughter his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. I'm sorry, I have to say that I almost teared up because I would be if I was Abraham. Or he should have been anyway. He said, Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him was a ram, caught in a thicket by its horns. And Abraham went, took the ram, and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. Thank God. So Abraham called the name of that place, The Lord will provide, as it is said to this day, On the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. And this is really reminds me of sometimes when I just have to have faith. God's going to take care of it. God's going to provide. So maybe I'm starving for 3 or 4 weeks and I do not know where I'm going to find the money for food. And all of a sudden something happens and God provides. And I'm like, wow, it was because I had faith, because I didn't fall weak. I didn't beg. I didn't plead. I prayed. And I also, when I hit those kind of situations in life, I pray and I say, if starvation is your will, God, then let it be. If it's not, please provide for me. And he answers that. And if I do starve to death, I figure it's because that's his will at that point in time. That is what was meant to be. And I have to respect and honor that. But that's kind of what this reminds me of. But I still think asking him to sacrifice his son was just going a wee bit overboard, if you ask me. Anyway, chapter 22, verse 15. And the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time from heaven, and said, By myself I have sworn, declares the Lord, because you have done this, and have not withheld your son, your only son. I will surely bless you, and I will surely multiply your offspring, as the stars of heaven, and as the sand that is on the seashore. And your offspring shall possess the gate of his enemies, and in your offspring shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham lived in Beersheba. Now after these things it was told to Abraham, Behold, Milcah also has borne children to your brother Nahor. Uz, his firstborn, Buz, his brother, Kemuel, the father of Aram, Chesed, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlap, and Bethuel, in parentheses, Bethuel fathered Rebekah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother. Moreover, his concubine, whose name was Reumah, bore Tebah, Gaham, Tahash, and Maachah. Okay, so if you're doing the family tree, we've got more people to add to that. Chapter 23. Sarah lived 127 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died at Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham went in to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. Imagine spending like 100, 200 years with somebody and you still are sad they're dead. Nowadays, we can't stand each other for 5 years. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. It is. I mean, last 5 years, it's almost a miracle nowadays. So, without killing each other. Usually one person is killing the other one for life insurance. I know it happened to me. Well, he tried to kill me. He wasn't successful because I prayed. Alright, chapter 23, verse 3. And Abraham rose up from his dead and said to the Hittites, I am a sojourner and foreigner among you. Give me property among you for a burying place, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. The Hittites answered Abraham, Hear us, my lord. You are a prince of God among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our tombs. None of us will withhold from you his tomb to hinder you from burying your dead. Abraham rose and bowed to the Hittites, the people of the land. And he said to them, If you are willing that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hear me and entreat for me Ephron, the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he owns. It is at the end of his field. For the full price, let him give it to me in your presence as property for a burying place. Now Ephron was sitting among the Hittites, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the Hittites, of all who went in at the gate of his city. No, my lord, hear me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it. In the sight of the sons of my people, I give it to you. Bury your dead. Then Abraham bowed down before the people of the land, and he said to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, But if you will hear me, I give the price of the field. Accept it from me, that I may bury my dead there. Ephron answered Abraham, My lord, listen to me. A piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me? Bury your dead. Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out for Ephron the silver that he had named in the hearing of the Hittites, 400 shekels of silver, according to the weights current among the merchants. So the field of Ephron in Machpelah, which was to the east of Mamre, the field with the cave that was in it, and all the trees that were in the field throughout its whole area, was made over to Abraham as a possession in the presence of the Hittites, before all who went in at the gate of his city. After this, Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah, east of Mamre, that's Hebron, in the land of Canaan. The field and the cave that is in it were made over to Abraham as property for a burying place by the Hittites. So he just bought a graveyard. It sounds like a pretty one, though. He loved her. He loved her to buy her an entire field that had caves and trees. That's beautiful love. And he didn't have to kill his son. Do you notice in that story, though, it never said that Sarah knew whether or not Isaac was going to be sacrificed? That Abraham didn't share that, because I wonder if Abraham would have shared that with Sarah, she would have stopped him. Did Sarah have enough faith in God to say, go ahead, sacrifice our child? So sometimes you wonder, is this a lesson where we have our own personal relationship with God and we don't share it with anybody else? Or are these cases after the fact something we share, but doesn't make it less believable if we share it after the fact than if we would have shared it beforehand? Granted, he would have shared it beforehand. I think a whole community of people would have stopped him trying to kill his son. So that was probably a smart thing not to do. But again, God's pushing it a little bit there, asking people to do that. That's my opinion. I don't know, one day, hopefully I'll get a chance to talk to him and be like, don't you think that was a little on the wild side? I don't know. God may never give me an audience with him either, because he'll be like, well, we're going to be here for an eternity. She has got a lot of questions. And she wants me to explain things in much more detail than I did in the Bible. So, I don't know. We'll see. God's got to be laughing at me. I hope so, anyway. I don't know. The alternative is he's mad. I guess we'll find out. Thanks for joining me for Bible time. Till next time, love you. Ah.